It's Monday, isn't it? Again, they keep coming around really, really fast, don't they? I might look a bit dishevelled today. It's because I was decorating all weekend. Did anybody else do a ridiculous thing this weekend and think, I'm going to just do some DIY? I'm just going to freestyle out there and just decorate, even though I hate decorating. And then before you know it, you've already started. It's a different colour and there's nothing you can do. Literally nothing you can do. You just have to keep on going. And that's before you realise you've got a gloss, which is significantly worse. And also, I'm just going to put it out there because I do brand work. It's part of my life. And I like to think that when a brand says something, they mean it. So if you write once on your tin, it should be once, that's all I'm saying. It shouldn't be like paint it 4 times over a magnolia, which should be very easy to cover, should it? You should have to specifically have somebody come round if it doesn't work the first time and do it for you. That's all I'm saying. That's how sure you should be of your product when you're allowed to put things like that on a tin, like once. And that's before I even go into how difficult it was to open it. And there was a little diagram that suggested you should be able to just push your thumb in and the lid would just pop off like that. I have no nails. Literally no nails. Why? Because they're in the tin. Because that was a lie as well. Just all lies. Just venting my frustrations before we start this mental health advice session, just to make you feel like you've got some empathy, should you have too been foolish enough to start any projects. That's all I'm saying. How are we, lovelies? Hope you're okay. Obviously, things are happening in the wider world. I will not profess to be an expert in the Ukraine or Russia. I tend to agree with what I saw when I worked in France and I went to the Cannes, basically. It was like a lovely peace memorial and it said that all the kind of leaders of the world had put a quote on there and Greece had put, peace is better than war. And I thought, that's probably all that ever needs to be said, isn't it? Peace is better than war. It's really sad that anybody gets killed in war. No winners when it comes down to civilians and even soldiers. So just to put it out there that I think we're all thinking about that at the moment, but also just wanting to also do that thing around, well, how can we make sure that we are grateful for what we have? And I think at the moment in the world, there is an undercurrent of, if you try to practice being grateful for what you have, you somehow have become selfish because you're not thinking about how terrible it is for other people. Unfortunately, that leads to terrible mental health. So I think that what we have to start doing is not feeling ashamed of the fact that our lives in the UK have a level of security that affords us this luxury, and it is a privilege and it is a luxury, and that doesn't mean that you don't use that well, does it? It doesn't mean that you don't think, well, actually, there are things that I can do that are positive and productive and progressive that make a difference. But that's very different than sitting there and saying, well, I don't deserve any of what I've got, because that means that you literally are at a complete discord with what's going on around you in your life and what you've created. And I've practiced gratitude for years. I think we should all do that, and I think at times like this it can be really helpful to just do that work at night when you go to bed and think to yourself, you know what, I'm going to be really grateful for really small pleasures and privileges that I don't often think about, such as, you know, for the most part my kids are safe in bed tonight, and for the most part I know I'm going to still have my home tomorrow morning. And they're things that often we don't think about in minuscule detail, because we get carried away with all the other things, the collateral noise and volume of just expectation and competition and all the things in between. And so, like I said, I just think from a mental health perspective, there are a few things that everybody needs to be doing right now, one of which is trying to digitally detox quite a lot. I've been writing a lot on that recently. Just don't watch the news if you don't have to, because, you know, how many times do you need to watch it a week to really keep up with it? I think twice a week, if you need to watch the news, is enough. And I think avoid it on social media unless you feel you need to see it, because it's going to directly affect you. Only because secondary trauma is something you've all suffered over 2 years, and now if you're going to additionalise that, again, it's like you can still be engaged and involved in helping and changing and shaping the way things play out by doing productive things that don't make you feel alarmed or harm you. It doesn't mean that you can't be useful. Lecture over. Let's get on with the questions, because I have a lot this week. I'm struggling with a sudden death that happened in work with a resident. It's coming up to a year and I'm still finding it very hard. I'm a mental health support worker. So first of all, when you're a mental health support worker, the title is a title that kind of makes you to some degree faceless, but actually beneath that you're a human being, not just a professional, and you're a human being who cares deeply about the people that you've created a vocation to serve. So you're not a mental health support professional, you're actually a human who also has this incredible vocation. But the thing that ties you to that vocation is high level of compassion, agreeability and empathy. That's what we'd see if we were going to do some kind of personality tests on you, I would gather. And that means that you take it really personally. That person who died suddenly, and I would imagine that potentially that was something that maybe involved something like suicide, but when somebody does that, you are tied to that because of the fact that you deeply care. And also you additionalise that because you then feel this level of guilt for not somehow making a difference to that situation, and you imagine that somehow if you had been in a different way, shape or form, in some way, what's wrong, Pete? I'm getting looked at in a kind of, go on, it's gonna have to come in. As you say, my mic's a mess. What am I doing wrong? He does a very, very aggressive look, I'm not gonna lie. It's like a, oh, she's doing it again. It's a £12 eBay shop that's the problem. This is probably the downside of shopping second hand in bulk. No, okay, what am I going to have to do? Turn the mic off. He's going to have to turn the mic off. It will be, is it really bad? Okay, it's really bad, he's saying. Give me 2 minutes and I will be back.